say, okay, I have a lot of money, but you have no money unless you take profits.
When the first ever spot ETF was created for gold 10x.
And the only thing I really knew was Bitcoin at the time, so I just invested very heavily into that. Rode it all the way up.
What's up?
My name is Jeff. Even the creators have said it's going to be the predecessor of CBDC.
What that taught me was that I need to be self-sufficient.
A solid DCA investment strategy, and pretend the red sell button doesn't even exist.
We about to go up like.
Welcome to the DGen Roundtable. I'm your host tonight, Brendan at Anonymous Bean Crypto. It is a very exciting time in the crypto world, in the economic world. We have a bunch of really interesting topics to cover today, and I would suggest sticking around to the end because we might just be bringing you a bit of dash of hopium that you might need to get yourself through the end of this bear market. It's been a long bear market. It's been one of the longest bear markets that we have seen in many, many cycles. And when you get to this bottom point, it can be very desperate. You can get into deep despair and you can want to sell it all and move on. But the people that are able to hold and get through these tough times will be rewarded in the future. And if you can get through the show, I'm going to reward you tonight with some hopium. So here at the DGen Roundtable, we discuss crypto-related topics, economics, and other relevant breaking news stories. I do also want to say that nothing we talk about on stream today is or should be considered financial advice. We are just an entertainment show giving our personal opinions, and we are not financial advisors. Therefore, nothing we say should be taken as financial advice because it's not. We are just a show to bring you our understanding of the markets, our experience, and maybe a little bit of hopium. How is everyone doing tonight, guys? What is going on? Will, my co-host, where you at these days? What is going on?
I'm still chilling over in St. Louis, Missouri, the wonderful, wonderful city of St. Louis. And actually, I just found out earlier today that St. Louis got designated the #1 most dangerous place to be in America. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, you see that driving around every fucking day. But yeah, man, I'm just chilling over here in St. Louis, enjoying this wonderful cold weather, panning in dishes and doing other tower stuff and enjoying life. That's what's up with me, man. What's up with you, Brendan?
Well, you know, my sisters live in Missouri, and I've been to St. Louis a bunch. Unfortunately, honestly, the state doesn't really have a lot to offer, in my opinion, especially not the city of St. Louis. Sorry, anyone from St. Louis. But I will say that one of the things I really like about St. Louis is essentially all of their museums and all of their zoos and aquariums are free. So definitely while you're there, go check them out because they actually have some pretty cool zoos, pretty cool museums, pretty cool aquariums, and they cost you nothing to enter. I mean, that's very rare around the country. So while they might not have a lot to offer, they do have a few perks that are like that. I haven't heard of anyone getting murdered in any of those areas recently. So hopefully, fingers crossed, you're safe.
We'll find out.
But what's up with me, man? You know, just getting ready for the Cardano conference that's coming up in just a few weeks. So finishing writing the presentation with Josh that we've been asked to speak at. I know that you're going to be there. Definitely holding down the fort for DGen Roundtable. And, you know, we're excited that we're getting asked to talk at some, you know, pretty big events and not something that I anticipated doing, but I think it's exciting and something that's going to bring some more eyes to the channel. You know, I'm a pretty big fan of the Cardano ecosystem. It is definitely a slower building ecosystem than some of the other ones, but they're building a very solid foundation. They're getting a lot of interest in foreign countries, especially in Africa, and they're doing a lot of work there to help people, which I think is going to bring a lot of success to them in the future. But nonetheless, I think it's just cool that we can bring another group of people outside of some of the main ecosystems that we talk about on a regular basis and expose them to our show and to what we do. So, Dace, I have not seen you in a while, buddy, and I love that shirt. What's going on? How's work?
It's been quite busy, man. That's why I haven't been around as much. But it's been a good thing. Trying to grow the business. Worked this morning, went to the gym, and now I'm here, thankfully, on the show. I've been taken care of. I don't know if you guys ever seen this guy on the stream.
Oh,
My little 14-year-old Maltese. Been taking care of him, and I came home today from work, and trash was all over the living room. He had gotten into a trash bag and drug it everywhere, which is not like him. He's kind of older. So I think he ate a little more than he was intending to, and try to make sure he's hanging in there and he's doing okay. Casey, did you go to the gym today? Can't hear you, brother.
we cannot hear you, Sir Casey.
There
I
you
did
go.
not go to the gym today. I got Sundays as an off day. Just all work today.
Right on.
I can dry powder and that's it. But I'm back at it tomorrow. Got total body day.
So Casey, when you're not at the gym, are you at the gym working, or are you generally working from home doing business development and other things?
Very often, yes, at the gym. So right now, I've been just pretty much working every hour of the day that I can schedule something. So I'm either at the gym. I work at a local high school 5 days a week. I'm there Monday through Friday for an after school training programs for all the fall sports teams. 3 days a week, I'm at a local college where I train men and women's swimming and diving team. And then I also throw in a couple hours at a pizza shop making pizza. So I was there today for about 6.5 hours.
Damn.
And then came back and been reading articles, trying to get prepped for this.
I love that, man.
So,
I think that what
thank
you
you.
just said is explaining to everybody that if you work hard and you work your ass off, you're going to be successful. Especially now, you're talking about stacking dry powder. Yeah, we're in a bit of an area of desperation for some people that are in despair. But I would just say stick to the plan, stick to your risk management, and stick to the coins that you know are going to be good long term. At least the majority of your bag, and then take your chances in those other coins. But I mean, you own your own company, you work out multiple hours a day, except on Sundays, Lord's Day.
That's right.
You essentially sling pizza. Apparently, I didn't know that. And
Yes, I do. Yeah.
you work as a fitness coach for athletic teams at the local high school. So, man, I love the work that you're putting in, and I think that is a really good example for the people watching the stream that if you're not bettering your body, you're bettering your mind, and you're helping other people, even if you're getting paid for it. So I love that.
Thank you, sir.
There's
Yeah.
actually him selling pizzas is part of his gym fitness business model, because if he doesn't sell the pizzas, then everybody stays physically fit and they don't need to go to his gym to work out. It's all part of just like keeping the cycle going round and round,
And what he didn't say is he sells the pizzas out the back of the gym, and at the front, people are going to work out.
Bro, that reminds me of Planet Fitness. Actually, those motherfuckers, they put pizza in like right up in the front of the gym, and like candies and shit too. That's damn,
Yeah.
Casey, look at you.
That's true.
Learning a thing or
That's
two
true.
from the old PF. That's hilarious.
So
Take it and make it a little better.
So I'm going to save you for last, Niles, but Zenith, what's going on, man? What you got cooking?
Not much. Glad to see everybody on the stream. We got a bit of a packed house today, so
Love
very
it.
excited for that. I was going to say, it feels like I just did this, and that's kind of because I did. On Friday, we hosted our first book club. We covered Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was myself, Will, Jay, and the much less seen but very important Mrs. McGettit, as well as Brendan. We had a great time talking about it, and I even had a chance to share a story how I was in Vegas, and I bumped into another crypto millionaire, and he asked me what my strategy was, and I told him. He called me a poor, and I could not be happier about it. So it was a lesson to be learned.
Gotta take your L's if you want to make W's. And
Absolutely.
honestly, serious about that. Like, humility is really important when it comes to growth, be it financially or in life in general. If you can't take someone's criticism that has been is more successful than you are in whatever the way, and honestly, even if they're not more successful than you are, they can still potentially give you really good advice. So don't think you're bigger than getting advice from people that are less successful than you, but understand when people are more successful than you, you really might need to open your ears. So anytime you have an opportunity to learn, even if it's from people that you might not expect to learn from.
For sure. And then on the topic of book club, we have not picked out our next one for the next episode. However, I have been talking about Millionaire Next Door. Reminiscences of a Stock Operator has been thrown out as well. And then if you want to get in the chat and throw out your suggestions to dethrone our current first place runner, which was suggested by Will, which currently is Green Eggs and Ham.
Ha! I haven't read that book in a while. You know, might have to go back to that. Might have some good info. No, the book club was great. I think that was a really great episode for anyone that hasn't watched it. Go back. There's some really good information in there, stuff that will help you grow and also keep up on it, because, you know, we have a lot of new segments coming out. I think it's really one of the benefits of this show is we have a lot of people with a lot of different talents. And so we can bring a lot of information to you in different ways, in different perspectives and different reviews. And, you know, it's interesting, you know, in Miami, every once in a while, don't think that I'm this big philanthropist, because I'm really not, but I just try to help people once in a while. And one of the things I like to do is go talk to the homeless, go bring them food and learn from them. You know, I have learned more about the city of Miami from the homeless people that I meet than anybody else that I have talked to, including historians. It's unbelievable some of the things that you can learn from people that have been living in a city on the streets for 20 plus years. And, you know, you go around not expecting to learn anything. You're just kind of going to bring them some cheer, right? Some hopium, so to speak. But if you are ready, you can learn from people that you least expect to. So, Niles, I love that you're on the show today. Jay could not join us, and someone that I consider equally as talented in TA, yourself, is going to be able to share with the group a little bit of that today. But before you do that, what's going on?
Well, appreciate that, man. Yeah, first and foremost, thanks for having me back on again, guys. Good to see everybody. What's going on? I've just brought myself out of retirement to get back in the gym. We'll get back on the court specifically. And I was giving some buckets to some guys that I work with, some of the younger guys. And so I'm moving around like an old man at this point. When you get into your 30s, you keep yourself in shape. You can still go out there and do your thing, still have some burst, still got my ups, but you just do not recover the same. So it takes me 3 and 4 days to get back to feeling like I can actually just resume daily activity and bend over and tie a shoe without audibly grunting. But yeah, just trying to get back in shape a little bit. I see we got some guys on here who are into fitness, and you know, we all got things to do in our daily lives, but like you guys mentioned, you got to keep the mind and the body strong, and that way you can operate optimally for building these portfolios.
Man, it's for the long run, right? Just like we talk about waiting out a bear market, having a plan for the long run. It's the same thing with your body, mind, soul. You got to make sure that you're doing that. Personally, I also am trying to get back into the gym. I have torn my right Achilles, partial tear, 7 times. And that's like 6 to 8 month recovery every time. So I have not been able to play sports, and I've not been able to go to the gym on a regular basis for quite some time. But good news, praise the Lord. My Achilles is the healthiest it's been in 10 years. My this last tear that I just got over in the current physical therapy session that I just finished is making me feel really, really good. And I just need to get into a routine. I feel like the hardest thing is getting into a routine, right? And that's where discipline comes in. Discipline in one area of your life rolls over into other areas of life. So I really need to start getting a little bit more disciplined and get into the gym. Just even 2 to 3 days a week to start, because I know if I get rolling, then I'm going to continue to want to put in the time, because for me personally, when I get into a habit, it feels so good and your body feels so much better. My mind feels so much better. I eat healthier. Everything goes well when I create discipline, and going to the gym and creating that habit is a really great way to create discipline in many areas of your life. So that's awesome. So today on the show, we are going to be covering a little bit of the SBF trial. We are going to be covering a little bit of how crypto, or does crypto, allow terrorists to operate in wartime without being seen or without being stopped by the government, because they can use crypto to fund their illicit activities. That's a question, not a statement. And then the third topic is going to bring you a little bit of hopium today. We've talked a lot about the bear market, but I have some potential numbers to talk to you about Ethereum and some experts' potential guesses of where ETH could hit in the next bull market, so 2025, 2026. But before we get into those topics, I am going to turn over to our Diet Great Value TA analyst, Sounds by Sino, aka Niles. Buddy, can't wait to hear what you're going to talk about. Take it away. Coming up at the end of the 60-day cycle soon, huh? We got some potential stuff happening.
Yes, sir. Give me one moment. Let me pull up my charts for you guys.
The DGen Roundtable today is brought to you by the letter H.
All right. So you guys can see me?
Yes, yes, sir.
All right. So before I jump into Bitcoin, I'm going to swing on over here to the S&P 500. And we'll see what we have going on over here. So as you guys can see, recently we've seen a ascending channel here on the S&P 500. We've had 5 points that we've bounced from, confirming that channel. A ascending channel is inherently a bearish structure, but for as long as we trend within the channel, we would expect it to continue. So we'll expect to see the S&P continue upwards to retest this area of resistance here at about 4,500 until we get a confirmed breakdown from that. And then we'll hop over here to the DXY, the good old Dixie. And we are seeing the same thing. We're seeing this ascending channel structure. Again, that is inherently a bearish structure. And we're going to expect to see a continuation. We did have a slight deviation outside of the channel, but we're going to expect to see us come up and test this resistance here at about 107. And that, for as long as we are trending upward, this guy has been on an absolute roll for about the past 3 months. And that is, for as long as this continues upwards, that is going to be bearish for all assets, including Bitcoin. So we'll hop on over here to BTC. And first thing that I would want to bring your attention to is the structure of the market, where we are seeing some pretty obvious bullish exhaustion. If you look here at these up moves, these moves to the upside are very clearly diminishing in intensity as we go. And not only are you seeing that exhaustion play out in the intensity of those moves to the upside, we're also seeing that exhaustion in the levels that we are finding our support at as we go along here. So you can see that we are steadily declining in the support zones that we're bouncing off of. So these out of our way. So we failed to, back in July, we failed to punch through our key resistance level here at 32K. It's important to note that there's not a lot of resistance between 32K and about 48K. So as I brought up last time that I was on that is going to be a macro bullish trigger for us. But so after we've failed to punch through that key resistance level, we entered into this overarching downtrend, which is culminated with us consolidating in this zone right here between about 25.8K to about 28K, with a brief test of our key level here at 28.4K. So over the past 4.5 weeks, we've been consolidating here in this zone, and we've seen a bit of an uptrend beginning to form in this zone. So it's to be noted that we are seeing some short-term strength. And as you can see here, these past periods where we've had price action being squished between these two trend lines, something had to give. The first time price gave way to a volatile move to the upside, and then in this area right here, we gave way to a volatile move to the downside. So something in this region is going to have to give. Either we will confirm that our breakout from this downtrending downtrend line here is just a deviation, or we will confirm the opposite and will validate this uptrend and break up above it, and hopefully above our key level of 28.4K. So the most important levels on our chart are going to be our 25K and our 28.4K. But 25K is by far the most important level on the chart. Why is 25K the most important level on our chart? Because this is a level that served to validate our upwards macro structure here. As you can see, we started off the first 6 or so months of the year very strong. However, it was right here in about mid-February where we actually got bounced from this 25K level, and we proceeded to correct and come down and retest this trend line, this long-term trend line that we've had dating back to our market lows in November. We touched that with consent, of course. And we then proceeded to blow the lid off of this resistance here at 25K. So because that 25K level is where we validated the macro structure of the market, that's also going to be the level that's going to serve to invalidate that macro structure. And then in terms of the key level to the upside, I'd bring your attention to 28.4K, which, as you can see over here, is going to be the start of a weekly bullish zone for us. So I've got these price zones broken down here. So in this zone here, from about 24.4 to 25.8K, this zone is neutral. We're not particularly bearish or bullish so long as we are consolidating in this area. Then we have the area that, like I mentioned, we've been consolidating in for about 4.5 weeks now, where we are seeing some short-term strength. And then above this 28.4K level, we are weekly bullish. If I throw us on a weekly chart, you can see here that if price action were to respond favorably and honor this uptrending line, and we continue up above 28.4K, that would create a very obvious uptrend within our weekly candles. And then should we continue and be able to break out, that is again our macro bullish trigger here at 32K. So I I was looking at our chart early this morning, and I was actually making some notes for a show that I'm going to be doing with Jay, where we'll be diving into some more in-depth technical analysis. Be on the lookout for that in about a week, maybe two here. I noted that we looked like we would be closing below our 50 EMA here, but based on our price action today, it looks like we're actually barely just going to squeeze out above that. If you guys can't quite see it, that is this right here. That is our 50 exponential moving average right there. And so us being able to close above that, as it is now 8:30, that is actually a good sign of short-term strength. However, again, we are not quite out of the woods in terms of potential downside until we are able to get above that key level at 28.4K. So we've seen some weakness developing also in our RSI over the past few days here. And if we were to see RSI begin to roll over, that is going to be your leading indicator for more downside in the market, as you can see here, where our RSI is rolling over. We're seeing our price action follow suit in the corresponding timeframes. So if this is indeed here where RSI begins to roll over for us, that is going to precipitate some downwards price action. And for the peanut brains in the back, that just means price go down. Shout out to Will Stevenson, our resident peanut brain here at the Roundtable. So how much downside could we end up seeing? If you pull up your Gaussian channel indicator right here, you'll see that anytime that price action breaks out above the upper band of the Gaussian channel and then retraces and corrects and breaks down from the midline, we are going to see a breakdown from the bottom line or the lower band of our channel. So I'm not going to go back all the way to our fall from the market highs of last cycle. But if you look here, we broke out above the upper band of the Gaussian channel. We proceeded to retrace into the channel, losing the midline, and then we ultimately broke down below the lower band. Again here, we break out from the channel, lose the midline, and then proceed to break down, losing the lower band. Break out, lose the midline, break down. So on and so forth. And if we zoom in, get these out of the way. If we zoom in here, you can see that we have just barely broken above the upper band of our Gaussian channel, and we are testing this midline of our Gaussian channel. So if you come back here and just measure these moves roughly from the bottom band in our channel to the bottom of the downside that we experience after breaking down from the channel, you get anywhere from roughly negative 15% to negative 5% in downside. So if we see this trend continue, it's very possible that we get anywhere from 5% to 15% downside should we lose this mid band. And if you see here, that rough estimate gives you some heavy confluence between this key weekly bearish zone, or the bottom of this weekly bearish zone, and the top of this neutral zone here. So that's just another indicator to keep your eye on, as well as our RSI, which again has been showing some weakness. And this will be the thing to definitely keep your eye on, is should we see it further breakdown from this upwards trend on the RSI, or if this is indeed just some deviation. So in the short term, I would say that it is the downside is the more likely scenario for us, but it is still very possible that we're able to either correct and gain some strength to get above this 28.4, in which case we'd need to see multiple daily closes to confirm that strength, and then that would validate our weekly bullish structure. If not, we've seen some heavy rejections from the 28 to 28.4K range, and the more times that we come down to retest our key level at 25K, the more likely it is that we ultimately lose 25K as support. But support is support until it is not. So while losing 25K is within the realm of possibility, it is not yet a probability, and we will cross that bridge when we get to it. And yeah, I think that is all I'm going to get into tonight, guys. And with that, I'm going to toss it back over to Brendan.
My man, that was some awesome information. Honestly, you killed that. What I find really interesting is you and Jay often come up with similar ideas and similar thoughts, but how you get there is so different. And this is what I love about this space. There's so many different ways that you can build your knowledge of technical analysis, that if you do it well and you do it properly and you practice, you may look at and use different standards in different ways to get the information. But as long as you're using enough of that information, oftentimes you're going to get to a similar place. Not always, because people do have difference of opinions when it comes to these things. But honestly, that information that you just provided was absolutely amazing. I think that would be an incredible short clip for us to put on the channel later. But I just want to give you a shout out because I think that was incredible. Now, one question I have for you. Do you get into the 60-day cycles much? With the 60-day cycle looking like it's ending here in the next week or so, do you see anything that we should keep an eye out there?
Yeah, so actually I'm not even gonna lie, I am not great at charting my 60-day cycles yet. That's something that I want to I actually spoke with Jay and Josh about doing an episode where we have Jay kind of come through and break down some of the prior 60-day cycles that we've had leading into our current cycle, and then have me come in and kind of break down what I'm seeing within some of the key price ranges and key levels, and then kind of wrap up with how what I'm seeing in the chart with my analysis coincides with exactly what Jay is expecting to play out based on a typical Lucas cycle. And yeah, like I cannot lie, I have not been practicing charting Lucas cycles lately. But I think that would provide a lot of value, not only for everybody in the audience, but for myself, someone who's looking to add that Lucas cycle analysis to my toolkit. And I think that for me is going to really help round out my skill set. But like you mentioned, me and Jay, we oftentimes come to a similar conclusion. Although I've noticed that Jay, he kind of likes to use moving averages and the 60-day cycle a lot more than myself, and I like to kind of analyze trend lines and key levels. And yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, you can come to the same conclusion, with a number of different tools, but that's just something that further serves to confirm that I'm probably on the right path if somebody else is coming up with the same conclusion while taking a different path.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, especially when you're learning TA. And honestly, I feel like you're always learning, right? Like everything else, things are always changing. Markets are always adapting. And so you really got to stay on the ball. But one of the great ways to do it is find like-minded people, join our Telegram. If you're practicing charting, throw your thoughts into the channel and get people like Jay's and Niles and Zenith and Josh's opinions, because these guys really have some incredible knowledge. I feel like I'm definitely lacking. I can chart a bit, but it's not my biggest area of expertise, though I'm working on it. But speaking of the 60-day cycle, Zenith, I know that this is something you have a bit of knowledge on. Anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Telegram chats, I have been trying to go as hard as I can in a lot of them lately, and I got into a discussion recently with somebody talking about the current 60-day cycle, but more specifically, where it starts. So if you want to look back at the charts, we had a swing low on August 22nd that ended up at around like 25.5, and then later on, we also had another low on the 11th of September at about 24.9 for Bitcoin. The thing that's interesting about these is that if you look at the previous cycle, if you take the first swing low, that puts you at about a 68-day cycle. And if you take the second swing low, that takes you to about an 88-day cycle. Now, keep in mind, the average of the 60-day cycles is 60 days. So I did a little bit of number crunching and then talking about one of the tools that Niles was using earlier is the Gaussian curve. This is also just another fancy name for the bell curve or normalized data. The idea that the majority of your data is going to fall along the center line by your average. And then the farther you get out, the more unlikely it is that you have data points out there. Specifically, it's easy to look at that 11th of September low and think that it is the end of the last 60-day cycle, but that would put you at 88 days. Based on some of the numbers that I was crunching earlier, that actually is about a little over 3 standard deviations away from the average, which would mean that it's honestly less than 1% chance that that kind of data point is going to show up. Is it possible? Absolutely. I'd argue extremely rare, though. So if you're trying to do 60-day cycles, it's totally understandable if you come up with either of those answers. Me personally, I think that the 60-day cycle is more of the 22nd of August. And based on that, that means that we're coming up on the cycle low here on the 21st of October. And if you go by the later date, that means that cycle low is going to be the 10th of November. That's just what I'm seeing. That's what I got for you. Believe you were on mute, my brother.
Well, apologize about that. I think that's honestly fantastic analysis. For me personally, I'm not an expert on the 60-day cycle, but from the little knowledge that I have and what I've been looking at, I'm kind of in agreement with you a little bit. I think that we're probably going to see this cycle turning over here in the next week or so. So I think that sort of October 22nd, October 21st, October 23rd, somewhere in those days, seemingly very accurate to me. But again, like you said, the way that people look at charts, and this is what I was saying, a lot of times you can come to similar data points, but there are some people that are going to have some differing opinions when it comes to things like the 60-day cycle, because it's not an exact science all the time. And that's why you need to continue to look at information currently all the time. You can't just say, okay, the 60-day cycle's October 21st, so I don't need to look at crypto for 2 weeks, right? That's not how this works. You need to continue adding data points to your analysis so that it can change and adapt and adjust based on the current information in the market. Super, super important. So Niles, Zenith, Sounds by Sino, I really appreciate that analysis. So we're going to skip over now to the articles. Niles, I am going to give you a thank you so much for joining us today. Definitely can't wait to have you on again in the future for some more TA. And I'm really looking forward to that dual stream between you and Jay. I'm sure that's going to be a recorded session, but I think that you guys together are going to put out some fire content when it comes to TA. So thank you so much, brother.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Take care,
cheers.
guys.
Okay. Yes, those hotkeys are a bitch sometimes. So our first article today is talking about Caroline Ellison and the trial for Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF. I think her polyjuice potion has been wearing off a little bit recently. She might not have the money to keep up on her treatments, so I feel bad about that. But nonetheless, we have an article to talk about, and I want to get started on this with Zenith. I know you've been following the trial really closely. You put out some really good information before the trial started, giving pretty much a large overview of what to expect, what information we have. I want to give a shout out to our mysterious man joining us, Josh. Josh, welcome back, buddy, to the stream. And but yeah, Zenith, take it away, buddy. What do you have to share with us to start?
Sure thing. To start off, one of the decisions they made early on was that there would be no photography or videography for the trial, which means that Caroline Eastman, unfortunately, has been at the hands of trial what artists. And I'm not going to lie, they've been doing her pretty dirty. So those pictures are funny to check out if you want to do that. But again, RIP for her. Anyways, into the meat of it. So to cover what's been going on. Previously, FTX collapsed back in November of 2022. If you remember the timeline, there was this one critical moment where a balance sheet got leaked that showed that they were pretty much heavily reliant on their own FTT token, and they had massive leverage taken out against it. At one point, they even had 80,000 Bitcoin listed as a liability, but they held 0 in reality in their assets column. Stuff like this was a major red flag. That actually told Binance to start de-risking, and they dumped their token, which dumped the price because about 90% of the token was held by FTX or Alameda Research, which is the investment firm that is paired with FTX. They are so paired, in fact, that Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO of FTX, was dating Caroline Ellison, the CEO of Alameda Research. This whole thing kind of was a kerfuffle with a lot of nepotism and people getting jobs that they might not be ready for. Notably, Caroline Eastman had a very, risk-on idea for how to manage things. At one point, she even said that she didn't believe in stop losses, aka the thing that helped make sure you don't lose too much money. All right, that aside, Sam Bankman-Fried declared bankruptcy in November of 2022. Since then, Congress has been calling on people. There have been investigations, and we're now at the trial. So specifically, Sam Bankman-Fried is charged with wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to commit security fraud, conspiracy to commit commodities fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, conspiracy to defraud the Federal Elections Committee, and campaign finance violations. All this is coming to court now. So far, we've had 2 major witnesses. One of them is Caroline Ellison, as we previously mentioned. The other is a guy named by Gary Wong, who is actually one of 3 close advisors to Sam Bankman-Fried. His testimony revealed that there was a backdoor between Alameda Research and FTX that allowed them to use customer funds to cover their own losses. Caroline Ellison also revealed later on that Sam Bankman-Fried was the kind of mastermind behind everything, and he had the final say and approval on everything. At this point, we start going into their fraudulent balance sheets that were pushed out to lenders so that they could leverage themselves even further into debt, on their own token, and that was just one of the things that really caused this to go down. The major point here, though, is that they were leveraging very, very poorly. This is a beautiful lesson on why leverage will get you wrecked. Additionally, on top of that, they were using customer funds to support a lot of this stuff and a lot of the weird stuff that they were doing. At one point, they were even trying to cover their own financial records so strangely that they were literally trying to launder money through Thai hooker crypto accounts to show that the things that they were claiming on paper were true. The trial is getting weirder and weirder every day, and they haven't gone into a lot of salacious stuff, but most notably for me, the thing that's been disappointing is that Gary Gensler, who actually has ties to everybody in this case, has not been brought up. I personally was hoping that Gary Gensler might get a little exposed here, and that might have him resign in shame, but unfortunately, we haven't seen any of that yet. All right, I know that was a lot. Throw it back to the guys. What do you got?
That was literally my note, is when are we going to hear Gary Gensler's name in these proceedings? I think that's kind of what a lot of people are waiting to hear. And it was my first thought was like, where? I think that there's a lot of documentation about his involvement and his, I think that that is exactly the question on a lot of folks' minds. It's interesting to hear the different media's coverage of it and different treatment of it. And nobody, we dare not say the name as of yet. Maybe this week things will change. And maybe that will coincide magically with the cycle. Sounds like a narrative movement that would be intertwined and work together pretty nicely, I would think.
For sure. Most notably, sorry, we'll go for it.
I was just going to say a perfect storm, perhaps, where like, oh, we've got this crazy cool money laundering thing going on, and then we get our guys voted in, and then, oh no, it all fails and it all collapses. And then, oh no, we got to put somebody on blast for it. Oh, hey, we've got these two kids that were methed out and fucking each other. And, well, yeah, they were methed out and fucking each other. Right. And then not only that, but there's like crazy nepotism that led them into the jobs that they have now. And then, it turns out that they fucked this up so badly just because they were making the stupidest decisions while they were methed out on their minds and doing all sorts of crazy things. So it's all working out very well. It's not normal that you would see, at least in my nihilistic standpoint, it's not normal that you would see people that like help get like funding politicians and propping up the state and trying to get laws passed and stuff. It's not often that you see them fuck up so badly where they, like, the corporate press would just throw them to the wolves. Like just taking a look at the pictures that they're putting up of Sam Bankman-Fried and the pictures that they're putting up of Caroline, it's like they're not putting up flattering pictures. You can tell the taste and the flavor that the corporate press wants you to have on whoever the hell it is that they're reporting about based on whether the photo is taken in a in like a positive light or in a negative light. There was a thing done like a couple of years ago with Joe Rogan where they like took a picture of Joe Rogan off of Instagram and they're like, oh my God, Joe Rogan's this crazy conspiracy theorist talking about horse tranquilizer going to save you from COVID and stuff. And they took a picture of him and they colored his face to make it look like he was pale and like all sickly and greened and stuff. And so like this whole thing is to wrap this all up. This whole thing is very perfect storm-esque in my opinion. I'm not sure like if just sometimes things turn out as like a happy fun coincidence, but it's crazy to me that these kids who got placed into this position more or less by their parents who were like I can't remember what their fathers were, but it's had something to do with developing regulation for SEC and securities and stuff. And I think Caroline's parents worked at Harvard and stuff, and they're all like this big giant mumbo jumbo family. DCC and Rollo Tomasi did a fantastic stream on it with Charlie as well, around about this time or a little bit after this last year. Check that out if you would like to. But those are my thoughts. Is like this whole thing is just very, very, very interestingly unfolding.
For sure. Calling the situation incestuous is not a poor description of this at all. For those who don't know, Caroline Ellison's father was a professor at MIT, also at the same time that Gary Gensler was a professor there, and he was actually Gary Gensler's boss. Additionally, Sam Bankman-Fried's parents were well known in the California Silicon Valley area. His mother was actually running an organization that was dealing with stuff, and his father, actually wrote legislation that was given to Democrat Congressman. Crap, I can't remember this. Basically, wrote legislation for the SEC to counter crypto. And then more specifically on the Gary Gensler note, the main note of interest is two things. One, there was a secret meeting alleged between SBF and Gary Gensler in March of 2022, where they tried to effectively use FTX to become the prominent platform in the crypto space. And additionally, on Kirsten Ellison's literal checklist was a note that said wield regulators against Binance. They were literally trying to use the SEC to go against their number one competitor. And those are really the two things that could damage Gary in this situation. But unfortunately, they're not exactly material to the crimes that SBF was charged with. So we might not see too much about them.
Yeah. So Zenith, I want to touch on that point because do you say alleged meeting? Do you say alleged meeting?
Yes, it was, that's as far as my knowledge goes. It was an alleged meeting. However, there were other people that picked up on it, like Congressman Tom Emmer literally made a tweet about it saying that, seems like there's a weird, suspicious thing going on here where you two are trying to work hand in glove government inside FTX.
I want to say it was twice. It was twice on the record, right? And Gary was questioned about that, wasn't he? At some point, or am I thinking of someone else? somebody was questioned on it, and they're like, I believe that the record states that I met with him twice.
I just read an article saying that he met with him 10 times. I just linked it in the Telegram chat. If you're in the Telegram chat, check it out. But when I Googled it, it said that he said under oath that he met with him 10 times the year before the collapse of FTX, which is wild to me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 10 times, but I do know through the Freedoms of Information Act, I do believe that there was at least one 45-minute Zoom call, which is what you're alluding to, Zenith, in March 2022. And, there's a couple unethical things here. First of all, FTX isn't even in the United States. That's not where their headquarters are. So why is the SEC, the head of the SEC, taking a Zoom meeting with someone that is outside of their jurisdiction? Two, if you're going to have a call like that, you're supposed to first receive approval from the Ethics Council of the SEC, right? So the SEC has an Office of Ethics Council that he is supposed to get approval from before he meets with somebody like that, which he didn't do. He just decided to meet with FTX anyway. Now, remember, he knew Caroline Ellison's father very well because Caroline Ellison's was an economics professor at the SEC. At MIT when Gary Gensler was there as well. So he has some deep ties to FTX and Alameda Research outside of him being the head of the SEC. Coincidence? I think not. I think a lot of these arrows are pointing into the position that the SEC is doing, or the head of the SEC is taking a position that is unethical, that is against our Securities and Exchange Commission's guidelines, and something that doesn't help the consumer in the United States, which the investor in the United States, which is literally his job, is to protect the investors in the United States. So no protection of the investor. In fact, just the opposite, giving clout to FTX and potentially guidance to them. I say potentially, we don't know that for a fact, nor do I know what was in these conversations, but it seems pretty clear that Gary Gensler unethically had conversations with SBF, and that's crazy. I don't know how Gary Gensler still has a job just based on how poorly he's been doing it. And then when you bring up his potential ethical issues, it really paints a dark picture for him and really points to sort of the swamp that we have within our government. Protection from people within the government, right? Gary Gensler causing issues unethically, putting things in place from an SEC standpoint that make no sense. That's why he continues to make record losses in court. It's clear that he is trying to overstep his boundaries as SEC. So there's so many red flags here, but there's almost zero pullback. We're starting to see some, right? He's had to testify in front of a couple of government committees in the House and recently. But to me, this is crazy. I think that's even a potentially a big story that people are really missing completely when it comes to this FTX trial.
One other thing I would want to add is over the past year, however long it's been, we've had all of these Bitcoin spot ETF denials and delays and refiles. And now that, even though Gary Gensler has not been mentioned in this case, now that this case is in court, for whatever reason, Friday, Grayscale, they basically declined to do the same with Grayscale. I don't know if that's a coincidence. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but those two things are happening at the same time, where for the first time, the SEC has not pushed back on a spot Bitcoin ETF filing. And at the same time, SBF and who is intimately connected to the person who's been doing the delays are in potentially very hot water legally right now. I don't know if those things are coincidence or not, but the timing is pretty wild.
Yeah, you could say that. Josh, anything you want to add on this topic?
You guys got a conversation going. I'm just sitting back and listening. I know there's a couple different things that a couple of you guys wanted to plop in there. So I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the conversation. If something comes up, then I'll speak up for sure.
Casey, what you got, buddy?
Yeah, so Zenith brought up something that I actually was curious about myself, where I found not surprising, but almost disappointing, the lack of mention. And I know we're all kind of just dunking on Gary right now, but the lack of mention of Gary Gensler and his involvement with this. My question to you, Zenith, is how much further into the trial would you see it when they have not mentioned him at a certain point that you think that he's just not going to be mentioned at all in this trial, if at any point?
So unfortunately, I think that point's coming up a lot sooner than we'd like. We're at the point where we've had a few very key witnesses, and this trial is only scheduled to go for effectively another 2 weeks. So at that point, we're going to be getting to closing arguments. We're going to be getting to jury deliberation, and that's really where we're not going to get a ton of new information introduced. Even then, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, is it very important? Absolutely. Is it all pertaining to Gary? Yes, that's the one that we're focusing on here because it's so easy just to dunk on this guy. However, at the same time, the person that is under the magnifying scope of prosecution is Sam Bankman-Fried and a lot of the other FTX associates who are now cooperating to basically try and convict the ringleader. So are we going to get as much focus on Gary as we'd like? Unfortunately, no. It's still possible for stuff to come out entirely, but at this point, chances are going down pretty substantially.
Right on. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but yeah, I was hoping that with, even though SBF was the ringleader, it's just, the more that, and you guys all have seen a lot of the same stuff. We've been looking at this since, probably last November, how much he was almost, arguably, allegedly aiding and abetting in the entire process is pretty wild.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that we plebs, we normal human beings, can see corruption so clearly, and yet the government doesn't always seem to care. And that's a little disheartening. So hopefully we do get a little bit of pull from the trial and someone questions Gary Gensler. My hope, honestly, my big hope is that it's a bombshell, right? Someone, when we least expect it, brings Gary on and asks him these really pointed questions. But again, because it's kind of out of his jurisdiction to an extent, right? FTX wasn't a United States-based company per se, but his involvement is crazy, absolutely crazy to me. So I think we covered that topic pretty well. So I'd like to move on to our next topic, which is a very interesting one to me. We had an incredibly sad terrorist attack that happened in Israel just a few days ago. About 1,200 people were killed in Israel by a terrorist attack by Hamas. And I don't want to get into the thick weeds about the sides of the wars or things to that extent. I want to keep it pretty crypto focused. But I will say for me personally, I condemn any act of terror. I lived through watching the 9/11 and how that changed our country and our society. And to see an attack that killed almost half as many people as one of probably the biggest terrorist attack that we've had in the United States was really sad to me. And so I do want to say that. I do want to put that out there. And I do want to pray for all of the victims and all the people struggling because of war all over the world. And I do want to pray and really push for world peace. But nonetheless, what we want to talk about in this topic is much more interesting to an extent. Does crypto allow terrorist groups like Hamas to perpetuate their attacks based on crypto? Does crypto allow them to be funded and therefore allow them to create more and larger attacks of terror on the world? Will, I want you to sort of take this article, give us your opinion, overall standpoint, take a side, and then we're gonna debate it a little bit. Essentially, does crypto allow terrorists to be more in the open because of the public blockchain, or does it allow them to be more secretive and fund their illicit activities more? What do you think?
Well, so the meat and potatoes of the article, the original article that I had found was from the Wall Street Journal, and they had framed it from a very crypto bad standpoint. Crypto bad because terrorism, but realistically, like I would say that is an unfair sentiment to apply to the cryptocurrency sphere. Saying that something is bad because it can be used for terrorism is just asinine. It's like, oh, planes are bad because they can be used for terrorism. Guns are bad because they can be used for terrorism. Secret money is bad because it can be used for terrorism. Hammers are bad because they can be used for terrorism. It's not the tool itself that is like that needs to be judged or whatever. It's the people that are conducting the actions using the tools that are supplied. So does crypto enable terrorism, or um, does it facilitate terrorism? I don't particularly think so. Like not any more than United States sending money over to rebels in Libya supports terrorism. Not any more than any country going out and fucking selling cookies and doing car washes and bikinis to fundraise terrorism. Like a system of like currency can be used however the governing body wants to fund any sort of system. So demonizing the original article that I had chosen for this, sort of kind of taking the stance of demonizing cryptocurrency because it has been used by terrorist organizations, is just kind of a little bit ridiculous. And I think kind of showcases the stance that the corporate press wants to take on where they see cryptocurrency, at least in the current time frames. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, but doesn't crypto allow Hamas to receive funds from people that agree with their mission, which is to I don't know what their mission is, so I don't want to say specifically, but clearly they cause acts of terror, and people can give them money with crypto. So doesn't that allow them to be more well funded?
Sure, but I mean, people could airdrop pallets of money over there as well. Like, there's tons of, like, we don't outlaw, physical cash because somebody can drive over there and hand people money, right? We don't say cash is bad. Well, I mean, in some cases we do say cash is bad because of XYZ reason and can be used for terrorism. Like the whole argument of this thing can be used for terrorism, therefore is bad, is the point that I want to drive home, right? And the thing about with cryptocurrency is that it's all like discounting Monero and Tornado Cash and Hurricane Cash and all that stuff. It's all on public blockchain. You can find the start, you can find the middle, you can find the end, right? You can find where all these things are going. So another thing they mentioned in the CoinDesk article is like these Hamas was discouraging people from using cryptocurrency to donate to their cause, because it's like every single one of these wallets can be tracked, right? Like it all lives in perpetuity on the blockchain. That's like the point of cryptocurrency. It can't be hacked, but it also lives like in the public eye forever. So that's like a super big misframing or misunderstanding, if you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, misframing if you want to say like they probably know something about it and they're just trying to twist the facts to feed some sort of agenda here. But like everything on blockchain is public. Everything on blockchain is forever. Everything on blockchain is trackable. If you have the time and you have the resources and you have the money, you can find all of this stuff. Like it's way harder. Like if let's say that person A is a terrorist and person B wants to fund them, they can walk over there and hand them some green pieces of paper and say, hey, here's some money. And there's no record of that transaction. If I want to go buy a taco and I take some quarters down to the local taco station, right? There's no record of my transaction buying these tacos. But if I want to use cryptocurrency or a credit card or something to that extent where it's a ledger system, whether it's ran by the Bank of International Settlements or it's an Excel doc, or it's essentially an Excel spreadsheet ran by like the validators or the nodes or the miners, right, on whatever cryptocurrency blockchain. All those things are tracked, not necessarily tracked in perpetuity, but they exist on a public ledger system in perpetuity. So using cryptocurrency as a secrecy means of funding a terrorist organization is an inadequate argument.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. But, to play devil's advocate a little bit, anyone can just, build a wallet, right? We don't know what that wallet is. They can have hundreds of wallets.
Sure.
They can send money from one wallet to Hamas or to other terrorist organizations.
Sure.
And unless we have centralized exchanges that can shut down these wallets or track, or connect the dots between multiple wallets and potential terrorists or bad actors, so to speak, what control do we have to stop them from doing that? Or because in non-crypto terms, the government's always finding ways to keep people from bringing money in, right? You have to actually give them money. Wire transfers are easily tracked by banks, and therefore it's easy to see who's done that. And I hear what you said about the article that Hamas is saying, don't send us crypto because now they can track to see who owns this. But isn't that what VPNs are for? Isn't that for what multiple accounts are for? Isn't there some worry there? And anyone can hop in on this.
I suppose that there is worry, but it's like, is that there's worry in everything, right? It's what you have to do is you have to weigh, do I want security or do I want freedom of movement, right? And you have to take those two things and you have to balance them, right? So if you want security, then you live in a world with no freedom, right? If you want freedom, then you live in a world of less and less like guaranteed security, and you have to rely more on your self-sovereignty for freedom. So as it applies to money, when you say if we have a centralized system, the centralized system is the U.S. government. The U.S. government has a monopoly on violence. Nobody can disprove that, discount that, right? The people that are in charge of the money system, if they say, hey, your money is not yours anymore for X, Y, and Z reason, whether you're a trucker in Canada that's trying to do some protesting things or whatever, and then the government says, hey, this is no longer good. We're going to shut down your cash stuff. You are now a terrorist, right? I'm pretty sure that Canada said that the truckers were terrorists or something to that extent, and then they shut down all of their traditional money system wallets and things like that, right? Like, if you trust the government to control your money system and for them to do a good job and to never lie to you and to never take advantage of you and to never, conduct illegal drone strikes on U.S. citizens on foreign soil, right? If you trust the government to never do these sorts of things, then sure, we can say that the government should have control over all this money, like switching hands or whatever. But frankly, I don't trust the government. I don't think that anyone should trust the government. I think the government should verify its actions more so than rely on us to just give them carte blanche to do whatever the hell they want to do to enforce whatever rules and safety things that they deem are necessary at any given point in time.
So I think you nailed it, man. I think you're talking the weighing of security and freedom is the critical issue. And I think we're still having this conversation about, say, platforms like X. At the end of the day, is money speech, right? That's the big question. We've decided over the years, hey, it's okay for anybody to write a book, right? But now here's the internet. Is the internet free speech? Is this going to be legislated speech? How is this going to work? Is this the same thing? We're in the process of figuring that out right now on a monetary scale for crypto. Is crypto speech? Is it not? Because if it's free speech, then the answer to the article is probably yes. That those tools do enable those things. But as was pointed out by my friends earlier, the difference is terror has always been around. People wishing ill on other folks has always been around. We haven't always been able to track their transactions. And so we have more tools now within that scope of freedom than we have before with which to potentially do something about it or track it. Or, I think because we've invented hammers now, does everybody have to have a license to get a hammer? Because you can kill somebody with a hammer. You can, I imagine there is a society out there in some alternative universe where they are more control and less freedom oriented. But I think that a lot of folks in America like the notion of individual sovereignty and freedom. And so I think that the crux of this question is money speech? And you're still seeing the free speech and how it relates to let's call it extremist organizations of whatever type. And in whoever's assessment, right? That's the problem. Who decides who's extreme? Who decides how free we all are on these new technological platforms? I just wanted to point out that it feels like the crux of it is, to me, is money, is value on the internet, speech or not? And that seems to be what's playing out now.
I'm going to go back to my favorite well, which is that there is nothing new under the sun. And these questions we've been asking ourselves for centuries or millennia at this point. The basic premise here, though, is that systems and tools are effectively amoral. They can be designed, they can be wielded in immoral ways by immoral people, but at the end of the day, the hammer's not going to get up and do anything on its own. It needs a person to use it. Crypto in this case is nothing different. You can use it for good. You can use it for privacy. You could use it to fund bad causes and bad people. At the end of the day, it's how the tool is wielded. But it's a philosophical question. What's really going to be happening and breaking out into the open is how can things be portrayed? What's the public sentiment behind it? And it's really it's the meta game around the idea, which is how can we effectively wield this and how can we effectively portray it as certain things by certain people? So with that said, at the same time, you could send crypto money to Hamas, or you could send crypto money to Canadian truckers. Choice is yours. You just got to figure out how to use it. And at that point, it's going to be public perception and legislators that figure out how to regulate this and come up with their own guide rails. But the beauty of crypto and DeFi is that it is decentralized. So good luck.
Well, sending crypto to truckers in Canada might not do any good if Canada just declares a state of wartime emergency and shuts down the wallets without trial, shuts down people's bank accounts without having a trial. So, unfortunately, in the United States, we have a bit better of a constitution. But in many countries, they don't have as strong of a constitution as the United States. They don't have as strong of a freedom of speech as the United States. And so what that allows them to do is be much more free, sure, right? But also it allows them to tread on freedoms that maybe are normally lawful within their country. And we saw that in Canada. So if people can send crypto and wallets can be not known, right? Not everybody has to be working on an exchange. And I can tell you this, weapons dealers take crypto. I don't know that for a fact, but I know that from some inside information of people that I cannot mention, cannot name, but they may be in the weapons procurement business. So there's no doubt that to make large purchases, like you need to cause large-scale terrorist attacks, to buy large weapons or that type of technology, crypto is a fantastic asset to do that. But on the other hand, as you guys are saying, everything's on the open blockchain, and therefore it gives you the ability to track potentially who is sending this money, especially if they're going to continue to do it a lot. And if you do read this article, which we'll put in the show notes when we're all done, it does talk that Hamas is starting to not want to take crypto because it is putting at danger the people that are sending them money. And they don't want to lose these donors because they might be able to be tracked on a public blockchain. So I think that you can make, at least from people that are worried about security, they can make some arguments. But it really comes down to what you guys are saying. Do you care more about security or do you care about freedom? And then the next question is, which we're not going to answer here today, we're going to leave this open in the ether. Is security real security? Or security only what they tell you and how they want to provide security for you? What if you don't agree in how they provide security for you? Well, you don't have a say anymore because you don't have freedom, right? So security is what we perceive in reality can be very different things. So that's something to really keep in mind as well. Something also interesting when it comes to Canada, I don't know if you guys know this. Canada didn't even have a constitution until 1982. 1982. I mean, could women even vote then? Could they even own bank accounts? just a few years before that, women were able to own bank accounts. So crazy that it took so long for Canada to become, I won't even say self-sovereign. They still play every king and queen video. By the way, my family is from Canada. My last name is Mercier. My family's from Quebec, parents, grandparents. So I could speak pretty well about it. But it's a very interesting note that they waited for England to give them their freedom, where the United States fought for their freedom to begin with. So when you have to fight for your freedom rather than just passively wait and hope to be given it to you, then the people in that country are going to be ran very, very differently. So I think that is a very interesting topic and a very interesting conversation for another day. But when we talk about freedom, other countries don't necessarily have that ability as the United States. And therefore, that argument is great here in the United States, but not as great other places. Yeah. Josh, been quiet today.
Yeah. So just, just something to keep in mind. Listen, it doesn't matter if you're pro crypto people, they're going to look at the situation and they're just going to say, hey, it's another means of funding a certain group. It's another means of transferring money to a certain area. It's cryptocurrency isn't used specifically to fund terrorism. It isn't used specifically for war. And that's just the reality. That's the truth. But the anti-crypto folks, they're going to bring up this situation with Hamas. They're going to continually go back to the Silk Road, when that was all going on. So, when you're paying attention, when you're listening to news articles, when you're reading news articles, watching news stories and stuff like that, you really have to pay attention to the framing, because the framing of how a topic like this is brought up is really going to tell you a lot, whether, a certain newspaper article, a certain online channel, a certain news story, a certain news organization, where they stand, whether they are pro crypto, whether they're anti crypto. That's really the only 2 cents that I wanted to bring up.
You're absolutely, hang on, I got something on that. You're absolutely right about paying attention to framing. And this is like, it doesn't only apply to news articles. This applies to literally every. So like I kind of want to expand that thought a little bit, right? So definitely pay attention to news articles. Definitely pay attention to people that are informed about something, that are trying to pass you on information, right? Everything in life, everything that we think about, everything that we consume, every movie that we watch, every song that we listen to, every news article that we read, every sign that we see driving down the street, it all affects the way that we think about things, right? And so if you're sitting there and you're just consuming all of this information that's being thrown at you, hodgepodge style or whatever, right? If you live in a very blue city, then you're going to have a blue line of thinking. If you live in a very red countryside, you're going to have a very red line of thinking. If you grow up Christian, you're going to think Christian. If you grow up Islamic, you're going to think Muslim, right? Everything that you surround yourself with affects the way that you think about and perceive the world. And everybody that's telling you things, everyone that writes a story, everyone that produces something, everyone, like even us on this cryptocurrency show, we are all selling you ideas right now. We're all selling you cryptocurrency thoughts and processes and things. We are doing this same very thing that I'm talking about, but you have to pay attention to, and you have to really think about and consider, why are people giving me the information that they're giving me? Are they giving it me to enable myself to make better decisions? Are they giving me the information so that way I can fall in lockstep with what they're doing, right? Are they giving me this information so that way I can go do the opposite, like they're trying to use reverse psychology or whatever? Anytime that you see or hear or smell or interact with anything, it is like it's small levels or large levels of hypnosis on yourself, right? So you have to pay attention to that, and you have to think about that every time that you interact with something. So like what Josh was saying, pay attention to framing, because framing is very important. You have to ask, why are people giving me the information that they're giving me? Is it for my own best interest, or is it for their best interest, or is it for someone else's, or some combination of all of the above? You have to stop and you have to think and ask yourself, why is this information being presented to me? And then from there, you make your own decisions and you make your own inferences and do all that from there. But that's all I got on that as a little fucking tangent of life advice for people.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point though, because, and Josh as well, it's not just framing in this one context, right? It's in everything. And it's never been so blatant in our media that they're choosing sides. They're choosing to portray news in the way that fits their agenda. And every news outlet has an agenda. So it's really important to try to find news from sources that don't have an agenda, which is literally just what we used to call news, right? Cronkite used to just read the news. Now it's not just reading the news, it's taking a side, an opinion. Personally, I think that you need to be well-versed, like you're talking about, Will, to understand the truth of what the news is actually covering. So trying to find the actual information, which can be very difficult, especially with some search engines and companies filtering data in the way that they want to filter it, filtering results in the way that they want to filter it. So it can be hard to get down to the nitty gritty. We'll take the zombie virus as an example for myself. There were so many articles coming from the news, some of which had nothing to do with science. And what I did in the first 6 months is I read every single research paper that I could on the zombie virus. So I wasn't reading actual newspaper articles. I was going to the source and I was reading the actual data coming from the scientists and the research that was being done. And many times what I was seeing is when I read the actual science from the data, from the research, it was not what was being said in the media. And so you have to find a way to be able to think for yourself. I mean, we talk about being self-sovereign. We talk about, hearing what people are saying, understanding both sides of an argument, and then making a logical conclusion based on the facts and the way that you understand it. But it's difficult right now because there's so many outlets that are trying to peddle one side or another that you really need to take extra time to do the research yourself. Just like in crypto, we say that you need to do your own research. It's the same when it comes to news. It's the same when it comes to science. And you need to be able to talk on a topic intelligently, not just reading headlines. So many people that I know read a headline and then think that they're an expert on a topic, or read an article that's biased and think they're an expert on a topic. So my goal would say, read both sides of an argument and then try to find some data that you can extract from a neutral source and make a decision for yourself. But this is a really, really important topic when we're talking about being self-sovereign in crypto, being self-sovereign in your life. And I know I've gone on a bit of a rant, but I think it's really, really poignant and really, really important to understand this point. Anybody else have anything to add on that? Awesome.
Yeah, I would. Okay.
Casey, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So, if any of you have taken any marketing classes in college, I was a marketing major, and pretty much what you learn in marketing 101 is that all marketing is manipulation, is hypnosis. I remember in some of the first marketing classes I took, it's using how certain images or colors or words or juxtapositions people will associate different ideas or actions or feelings or emotions with those. And essentially the science of marketing is how manipulating consumer behavior. How can we put something up, whether it's a song with a picture, a color of a certain item, color of a background with a different item on it, a picture of someone's face with a certain emotion? How can that influence the consumer to purchase our product over another product, or purchase our product when they might not choose, when they may choose to not make a purchase at that point in their day? So everything that you guys have said so far has got a lot of weight to it, and I think you have to be very, very, it's one thing to hear that and know, like, okay, everything is trying to influence me, but it really is true that everything you see there is power to it, and it can put ideas in your head and make you feel a certain way to take an action that you may not otherwise take. And you can apply that just to, like Will was saying, with the framing, whether that's, news articles that are inducing, fear, uncertainty, and doubt into you in times when it may be better to, ignore that and hold to your convictions. Like a period of time I think we're in right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great addition. And there's actually a book called The Power of Habit, which talks about how companies market to the consumer and how they use your habits and how you live and how you talk into Google or Facebook or whatever the case may be. And they use that to market to you specifically. So not only is The Power of Habit a great book to understanding how to change bad habits and introduce positive habits into your life, but it also gets into some of the historical foundations of, for example, how Febreze became popular and how their marketing changed everything. Even though they had one of the best, most unique products on the market already, people weren't buying it because they were having trouble marketing it to the consumer. So it's huge. And every newspaper, every media outlet is using these same marketing techniques to try to sell you on their point of view. So you have to understand that. You have to be open-minded. So are you in the matrix, or have you taken the proper color pill? Okay, I think we're good on that topic. We have one more topic to cover today. This is an interesting one, and I hope that we can give you a little bit of hopium. So I think everybody on this panel is going to have some interesting thoughts, and I know that we have struggled through one of the most painful bear markets that the market has seen in a very, very long time, the worst I've seen in my life. So it's great that this is my first bear market, and it's a really tough one. First bear market in crypto, I should say. Been a really, really tough one, but there is hope. There is hope. There is hope. One of the things that we are in crypto for is the ability to become self-sovereign, the ability to create lasting wealth and create a path for being self-sovereign from a financial standpoint, from a personal standpoint. This article was one that I found very interesting. So there is an expert. Many experts have talked about this, but in this article, one specific company is saying that Ethereum could hit 8,000 to 10,000 by the end of this next bull market. So they're saying it could raise 5-fold or more. So currently we're at what on ETH, around 1550, give or take. So a 5-fold from there would be, $8K or more. So we're saying maybe 8 to 10K Ethereum could potentially hit. That's what they're saying in this next bull market. Now they say by the end of 2026, but I think what they're just saying is I think they're just trying to say, hey, if the bull market takes a little bit longer to catch hold and it takes longer for it to end, then it could be 2025, could be 2026, but essentially the end of the next bull market, we could see a valuation of Ethereum at 8,000 to 10,000. Now, if that happens, I would think that potentially gas fees could be very high, but also we know that Ethereum is the leader of the altcoins. And if the leader of the altcoins is doing a 5 to 6x from current prices, what does that mean for altcoins that are very good projects that maybe haven't had their biggest bull run yet, where Ethereum probably already has? Could we see 10x's? Could we see 20x's? Could we see 100x's in some cases? All I know is that when I hear 8 to 10K Ethereum at the end of the next bull cycle, that brings me hope. That brings me excitement. Panel, is this something that we could actually see? And if it is, what does that mean for gas prices of Ethereum? Have they fixed them? Are they crazy through the roof? So we need another outlet to be able to build, like maybe a layer 1 that was forked from the Ethereum blockchain, a little something called Pulse Chain. I don't know, just asking a question. So these are the things that I want you guys to talk about. Let's bounce this off. I see Josh, my man in the glasses. I don't know if that's you or your twin brother, but what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely possible. Look, I got the ETH chart up right now, and if I could share the screen if I wanted to. Yeah, I'll go ahead and share it real quick.
Seen an ETH chart in a while.
Yeah, let me just share my screen real quick. Hang tight. I want to pull up. Here we go. Look, I mean, it's super simple. Let me go full screen on that one. There we go.
That's a lot of squiggly lines.
Yeah. So look, if get rid of this. So you guys can see the chart pretty well, correct? Yeah, see the chart.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, we got
Okay. All right, gotcha. All right, so look, if we're gonna go from cycle high, I'm gonna delete this as well. Well, no, I already got it pulled up here. So from cycle high down to cycle low. So from the 2021 high down to the 2022 low. If we just do a simple fib retracement, we can see that the second level goal, the 2.618, which is it's a good goal to reach, is at the $11,000 range. So $8,000 to $10,000. I feel like it's certainly doable. But of course it's all going to rely on Bitcoin and how everything plays out with Bitcoin, to be honest. But yeah, I definitely think that price point is within reach. But who else wants to hop in?
All right, Zenith.
Oh, go ahead.
Go for it. All right, Zenith, the number guys today. I got the numbers for you here. So looking at Ethereum all-time highs, the last one we had was in November of 2021 at $4,800. Before that, it was 2018 January at about $1,380. That translates to about a 3.5x between all-time highs. So assuming that we even just did a 2x, that would put us at just about 10K. If we did about a 3x, that would put us at about 15K. One of the things that you can see when you look at the growth of cryptocurrency specifically is that it follows a bit of a logarithmic curve. What I mean by that is that it hits really explosive in the beginning, but then it starts to flatten out up at the top. A lot of the data you're going to see is fit to this kind of a curve. So in the future, we're going to see lower or relatively lower all-time highs. However, those numbers are still going to be massive. Is it entirely possible to hit some of these numbers? And me personally, I think about 10K Ethereum is going to be the goal for this next cycle.
Well,
I think that it is certainly possible. At the end of it, look, none of these predictions amount to anything much more than campfire stories. At the end of the day, people are throwing numbers out based on what we think, what we like. That the whole thing could go to zero tomorrow, right? But as far as these numbers go, these numbers are they're realistic, right? Nobody's saying that Ethereum's going to 100,000, Ethereum's going to 1 million, Ethereum's going to the moon, and equally no one's saying Ethereum's going to $10, right? Ethereum has a whole bunch of use case. Every single one of those use cases, every single one of those things that it every single function that it holds and that it the service that it provides, right, is one more reason for people to use it, right? So every single little story that people tell themselves for why are we going to use Ethereum, why are we going to buy Ethereum, right? It's the base computer upon which pretty much all cryptocurrency operates, right? Pretty much every single ERC20 coin, most coins that are out there that exist are on the Ethereum blockchain, are developed on Solidity. They're written using the Ethereum computing network. They require Ethereum gas fees. That you can find them on Uniswap, right? All of these things that rely on the foundation that is Ethereum. Bitcoin is the first and best dressed. Ethereum is the workhorse, the computer, the slave driver, the whatever you want to call it of the cryptocurrency ecosystem. And then you've got cool things like Pulse Chain, which is like the better, faster, brighter version that's just not as well adopted yet. You've got things like Binance, which is their own fucking little thing over there. You've got Matic, you've got Polygon, you've got Optimism, you've got Arbitrum, you've got all these other layer 1s and layer 2s that they all do their own thing. But Ethereum was the first one in, and it's the most functional one. And it has the most like solid proof of concept. So all these are little stories that people will tell themselves for why should I buy Ethereum in the future? Is it useful? Is it great? Are they solving problems? Sort of, kind of. Are they making their gas fees cheaper? Sort of, kind of. Theoretically, well, they've said a lot of words. They've done some actions, so we will see where that goes. But those are my thoughts. It's like it's sticking around probably because it's the major computing system. It is the neural network, as far as I see it, of the cryptocurrency world. Most things require Ethereum to function. If Ethereum just like goes and just dives down and goes away, then a lot of other things are going down with it. And that's just probably not going to be the case simply because it has a I don't know if zeitgeist is the right word, but it has a meta of existence in the cryptocurrency community. So those are my thoughts.
So I think you're right in a lot of ways, Will. What I would say, so if you look down at the bottom of this article, this banker says, we see the $8,000 level as a stepping stone to our long-term, quote unquote, structural valuation estimate of 26 to 35,000. This person heads up the bank's digital assets research. What does that mean to you guys? That's what I wanted to ask. What does long-term structural valuation mean to a banker when it comes to this type of an asset, particularly in the light of Uniswap introducing KYC, and the next Ethereum EIP release also having to do with KYC. I think, Will, you're right. It is a central hub for crypto that would incentivize bug eaters to control it. Just my thought. And I wonder if that means that an Ethereum ETF would be more or less bullish. And also I would wonder about the timeline for an approved spot ETH ETF because it is so critical. I think there's no doubt about it. There will be a war over the supply of the stuff. There's no doubt. But in terms of where it will go and when, that's anybody's guess. I mean, we were talking about that $8,000 level, what feels like not so long ago, at the top of the last bull when we were at $3,500. And so, you see it. The bottom of the screen says bullish. I believe that it's certainly possible, or I wouldn't be here on the show. But I am interested in the details. I think that the fees getting fixed may or may not be. I think that you're going to see either the fees become more streamlined or a spot ETF be approved before we get to some of those really wild plus 10K targets. That's me trying to be reasonable. I would love for it to be 25 grand. That'd be amazing. What you got, Casey?
Yeah, so I have possibly the most ultra peanut brain take on this. But for me, with ETH, it comes down to the question of do I think ETH is going to make a new all-time high? Yes. Do I think ETH is going to, that new all-time high will be a 2x or greater? Yes. 8K is less than a 2x from its previous all-time high. And I know that, past performance doesn't mean anything, but the way that the market has been going, I've been looking at the crypto markets since 2017. I was in back then and had to get all the way out and then got back in 21. And just to see what I had put in then, what it would have been in 21 and where things went from 21 up through the remainder of that year until now, there'd have to be something crazy happen for me, in my view, on it to go less than 8K. And then another thing for me that puts more conviction behind that was when the ETH 2.0 came out with their proof of stake. That had been something that they were talking about for years, that, okay, it's going to switch to staking. It's going to switch to staking. I have friends that were mining ETH, and I had been talking to them for quite a while about getting into it. And they were saying it may not be worth it, the cost, because when it switches to staking, you're not really going to be mining it with the hardware. But no one really knew when it was. But to see that happened and it made the transition and it's been going very smoothly, it made the low happen sooner than Bitcoin. It's been holding up from what I've seen better than I think a lot of people would expect it to crash down to. They have their roadmap with all of their, the merge, the splurge, the purge, whatever, all those, the rhyming words. If those continue to happen, I don't see how ETH doesn't keep growing, continue to be one of the blue chips and one of the main assets. I'm obviously a fan of some of the ETH competitors that I think will do it better. However, I think it would be silly not to invest in it.
Fair enough. If anybody asks you if you think Bitcoin is going to make all-time highs again, the safe bet is to say yes. In Bitcoin's history, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's made something like 42, 43 all-time highs continuously and continues to do so. Because of that, the trend is going in that right direction. And like Casey alluded to, past performance is not a guarantee of future performance as well. But at this point, the chart definitely looks at it. Additionally, the main point I want to make is this. If you are friends with a man named Somi on YouTube, he likes to talk about something called Metcalfe's Law. What Metcalfe's Law is a law that states the financial value or influence of a telecommunications network, i.e. blockchain, is proportional to the square of the number of connected users of the system. Basically, what that means is that the value of a system is directly linked to the number of people that use it. So the more users you get on something, the more valuable it becomes, not at a linear scale, but at an exponential or parabolic scale. It means that the more you get, the more value each of those next users has. So when you look at something like Bitcoin, which is the blue chip and the number one, and then Ethereum, which is, like Will said, the workhorse, the Ethereum virtual machine is the most powerful thing that we have on any kind of blockchain, which is that it is the thing that most people use to create smart contracts, execute them, and gives a use case to cryptocurrency. So additionally, going into the future, we're only going to get bigger and bigger. And the more people that we get, it's even more powerful based on Metcalfe's Law. So building community is massive for this. Getting more people to adopt it is massive for us. This is where we look at like TradFi, trying to get ETFs going and stuff. The more users, the more value.
Yeah, that's great. If people haven't heard of Metcalfe's Law, it's definitely something important to understand and to study up on a little bit. Currently we're sitting at 1 trillion in market cap for crypto. The all-time high was 3 trillion. So that's a 3x, right, from where we are currently. And if we 2x that, if we get to 6 trillion, right? If we get to 3x that at the 9 trillion in the next bull market, could really blow the top off some of the prices of these coins. Currently, with ETH at 1550, if it gets to around 10,000, that's a 7x. If it gets to 12,000, that's an 8x. If it gets to 15,000, that's about a 10x. And I think that these are plausible outcomes. You have to do your own research. This isn't financial advice, but generally speaking, the people that make money long-term in the market are the people buying when the outlook seems the most bleak. Right now, I've seen a lot of crypto chats. I'm part of a lot of them, and people are pulling their hair out. They're really struggling with this drawn-out bear market, and they need hope. The hope is that Bitcoin has made, as Zenith said, 42 all-time highs, and it will, in my opinion, not financial advice, make all-time highs again in the future. And so I think that is really important. Keep in mind, this is still a risky asset class. It could all go to zero, right? That is still possible. And so you have to do your own research. You have to understand for yourself what your risk tolerance is. And if you think, after you've done your research, is Ethereum going to continue to grow? Are people going to continue to adopt it? And if that's a yes, then now may be a good time to buy in general, if you feel comfortable with it. If you can understand the risk, understand the platform, and think that it's a good place to put your money. But again, I can't tell you to buy. All I can say that is if it does get to that 8 to 10 to 12 to 15K range at the end of the next bull market, that's a 7 to 10x from current prices. So you can now do the math yourself and understand after you've done your research if it is a good thing for you to buy. If you think that it is a worthwhile investment, then do so. But don't take my word for it. Now, I have one last question before we close up. If Ethereum hits all-time highs, say 8 to 15K, okay? Let's say it hits 8 to 15K in the next bull market. The last time we were seeing very high Ethereum gas fees, even at 2,500, 3K, 4K. I mean, I saw gas fees at 50, 60, 70, $100 per transaction and more in some cases. Would gas fees increase? Would it mean that they've solved their gas fee issue? And I just want each of you to say, if you could guess right now, what do you think Ethereum's gas fee would be per transaction at a high point in that generation, in its high bull market future? Dace.
I think that they will have fixed the gas fees. I think that they're going to do what they can to keep it down until the gas fees are fixed. I think if you see it, if we see Ethereum jump to 10, 15K, and they don't have the gas fee problem fixed, you're going to see a lot of other projects start to absolutely explode. And so it would be in their best interest to fix the gas fee problems so that they can maintain their hold on the market. And I think, kind of piecing this together as we're talking about it, because I haven't thought about your question exactly, but I guess what I would say is the ETF, a spot ETF approval would indicate, hey, look, we're going to do our best to sort of mitigate and ride this thing until we have our proper controls in place, whether that's gas fees, KYC, what have you. So I would guess that to get above, let's say 8, 10K, I mean, yeah, look, the math gets wild, right? If it's $10,000, what percent, if you're taking 0.5% of a 10 Ethereum transaction, I don't know what the gas fees get to. We haven't seen that yet, right? I'd be guessing if I told your brother, but I do think that they prioritize fixing the fees in tandem. I think that there's probably, for the folks that are running the show, that there's probably interest in both getting a spot ETF approved and mitigating the gas fee issue. Both of those things working together would maintain its supremacy that Will talked about earlier. That's what.
But my question is, we keep saying if ETH fixes their gas fees, what does fixing their gas fees even mean? Would a 50% reduction in their gas fees would be a large fix, but that still means very high gas fees, and therefore we still need platforms to help take some of that traffic from their blockchain to other areas and other avenues. So I think it's really important. So as we each roll out, I'm gonna keep asking this question, then we're gonna end up, and then we're gonna close. But Zenith, real quick, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm not afraid to make a fool of myself, so let's do some napkin math. I think I paid about $5 for an Ethereum transfer the other day and about $15 for a swap on Uniswap. So that's at current prices. If we assume a 10x, that puts us at $50 and $150 for swaps. But that's only half the equation. What makes up gas fees? That is how busy is the network. Like I alluded to earlier, we're probably going to have more users as time goes on. And also, when do people use the networks the most? I'd argue it's at the top of the bull runs when all the good press is getting out there and everyone's telling you that Bitcoin's going to 1 million and that this is the time and Bitcoin forever. That's when we have the most people on. So even if you just assume that there's a doubling in the user base and the amount of traffic on there, you're not looking at $150 swaps. You're looking at $300 swaps or more, depending on how many people we get. So yeah, assuming that they don't fix the gas fees, you're looking at some big numbers. This might be an opportunity where there's like, I don't know, a good L1 that was forked off of the EVM and had a good snapshot that reduces gas fees entirely. Cough, cough, pulse chain.
Thank you. Will, you do you pay attention to gas fees at all? Or you just, since you're not, trading too much, does it matter to you?
I don't really trade much. The only thing that I use gas fees for is taking my money off of Coinbase and bridging it over to Pulse Chain. So That's what I pay attention to with Ethereum gas fees for, is how do I get my money off of Ethereum, right? I know that the Gwai has something to do with it. I think that Gwai is similar to Satoshi's, correct? Like one Gwai is kind of like a Satoshi, something like that. And the way that they measure gas fees is like it's measured out in Gwai. So something about the math for your transaction or your transfer or your whatever the thing is that you're doing on the Ethereum network that costs, you know, computational stress or whatever to the system, right? That is measured out in Gwai, and there's some sort of fancy multiplication from there. But I don't really pay attention to gas fees too much. I guess I got some stakes in Hex that are ending on Ethereum at some point, and I'll have to pay gas fee for those, and that'll be annoying, or it won't. But I don't really pay attention to gas fees. I know that ZK rollups is a thing, and the way that that's been described to me is like kind of like carpooling instead of driving your own car. It's like we're packing all these people, all this information into one vehicle. Or maybe that's sharding. I don't remember if it's sharding, dank sharding, as they like to call it, so that people don't think about, like, you know, shitting themselves when they fart or whatever. But I know that sharding and ZK rollups are the two things that Ethereum's doing for gas fees. I don't know if they've come out yet. I don't keep up with all that information. I just pay my little gas fee to exit the system, and then I use a better one, which is Pulse Chain.
Yeah, so
which is free speech.
GWEI, essentially that means 1/100000th of an ETH.
Okay.
So if you have 10, if the current fee to make a trade is 10, and it's 10 billionth of an ETH. So just FYI there. Casey, I'm gonna let you talk about this, and then also as we wrap up, why don't you plug yourself? Let us know where the people can find you. But first, I want you to touch on this topic, and then you let people know where to find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, sure. So for gas price, to put a number on it, I don't know. I think it's going to be triple digits. I think it's not going to be pretty. The one prediction that I'll set in stone and stand by is that I don't think the gas prices will be fixed in this bull market. I think it's going to be sometime in the next bear market. I think they work on what they're going to work on, but I haven't been super optimistic with their timelines. So I think it's going to be ugly. Multiple $100s for swaps or bridges or what have you. With that said, I always just try to check, I use CoinGecko. There's all places you can look at what the GWEI is and try to do that at times when you can find a lower number. That's one mistake I made when I first started. But yeah, I think it's going to be ugly, and I think it won't be fixed this bull market. And then to plug myself, my Instagram, Gains by Casey. My gym is Beyond Driven Fitness and Performance. On Instagram, we are Beyond Driven _training. And that's Beyond Driven, the two words smashed together. So just one, there we are, one letter D. I'm not on a computer I can log into YouTube right now, so I can't put that in the chat, but I'll pop that in my description box here. And that's what I got. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate that. This is an awesome stream.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate you live subbing. It's great to get, our community involved, and we have so much talent in the community. We saw Niles on earlier just crushing TA. You joining a couple streams recently has been a really great benefit to the show. And we want to show our community to the world, because we have a great community and we have great people here. So really enjoy you. Really joining on. Will, what you're working on? Where are you going to be? You're going to be in St. Louis for a while. We know that, but why don't you close yourself out here?
So some things that I am working on. I'm currently in St. Louis. So again, if anyone's in the Missouri, Mississippi, Illinois area, whatever the fuck states border, Missouri, hit me up and I'll swing by when I have the time and say hi. We'll grab a beer or do a chat or maybe an interview. Who the fuck knows? Some things I'm working on. I'm going to be at the Cardano Summit with Mr. Brendan and Mr. Josh, and I believe Mr. Antoine. We're all four going to be down there at the Cardano Summit representing the DGen Roundtable. So that's going to be a fun time. We're going to get degenerate over there in Miami. So that'll be cool. Some other things having totally nothing to do with crypto is I'm almost finished with putting together my archive website for Rule Zero. So for those of you who are a fan of Rule Zero or follow that stream with like, Rolla Tomasi and Ryan Stone and John Fitch and Aaron Clary, all that, I'm putting together an archive website. Me and my dev, we've been working on this thing for about a year now, and it is almost ready. So stay tuned for that in the near future. And that's about it for me on the pipeline. You can find my socials down below in the links in the description if you want to follow me or be my friend on Facebook or do whatever the hell. I put a bunch of contrarian things on there sometimes, but that's all I got going on. Mr. Dace, what's up with you, bro? What are you up to?
Man, I am keeping busy with work, trying to stay in tune with the crypto markets. Always super busy. Find me on X at Dace Northal if you want to follow my crypto related likes and retweets and musings now and then. Zenith, good to see you here, brother.
Good to see you as well. It's been a hot minute since I think we've been on the stream together. You can find me on Twitter at Hex Space Force and Instagram and YouTube at Hexaco Space Force. If you're seeing some guy named Zenith Crypto in the Telegram chats, that's me. I did recently just post my breakdown of a Gaussian distribution for 60-day cycles, so please go argue with me there. And then don't forget that we are doing book club. We need a recommendation for the next one. Right now, Green Eggs and Ham is winning, so please somebody dethrone Will. Otherwise, I'm going to have to make a Drunk Uncle Z video covering that one. And as always, previously I was plugging that we are going to be hosting Crypto Coffee on Wednesday. We are doing a bit of a reshuffling and rescheduling. So Wednesday's stream is going to be a whiskey AMA come hang out and chill stream. That is all I got. Over to you, Brendan.
Thank you. Thank you all. Honestly, great show, great panel, great topics, great TA, and great community. We couldn't do this without the people watching and the people in our community Telegram. So please join our community Telegram. It's in the description. And definitely join us Wednesday. We're going to call that a Whiskey Wednesday show. So you don't have to drink. We don't, say that you have to have a libation to be able to join us. But if you want to, we wouldn't be disappointed in that. So join us on Wednesday, and then we'll have our normally scheduled show Sunday. And then we got a few more guests coming up in October and November. So we're really excited about that. So please join our Telegram, like, subscribe, tell your friends about us, tell your family about us, tell your doctors about us, and your ex, if you're still talking, tell them about us too. But yeah, we just want to bring as much valuable information to the community and to the world as we can. And to do that, we need more people to watch. And the people currently watching and joining our Telegram, we are infinitely thankful to you. And, be strong. If you lose your conviction, then go through why you're in a coin, go through why you're in crypto, and just go from the basics again and say, do I still believe? Am I still a fan of what I'm investing in? And then you have to understand what your risk tolerance is. But we really appreciate you. And Josh, thank you so much for producing the show. Will, thank you for being a very valuable co-host. Thank you to the panel. And I cannot wait to see you all on the next episode of the DGen Roundtable. We are out.